Hearing wise, your ears are amazing considering the years of what I can only guess is abuse that I may have had.
Basically, yeah. I always wear protection. Remember that, kids.
Remember that.
Always wear protection.
Yeah.
But I'll try not to like sneeze and cough and straight into the mic.
I mean, some people are down for that. They like a bit of the the
ASMR. Oh, I found that stuff so weird because my girlfriend
creepy.
showed me that. Yeah, and it was like, hey, you've got a really nice face. I'm just gonna.
Oh yeah, no, not for me.
Like each to their own, but to me it was just like.
To me, it's like getting your nails and scratching it down a chalkboard.
Yeah, I guess I would love that, and other people not so much.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a thing though. I think I'm always amazed at what we make a thing nowadays.
Well, I guess anything can become a thing now, can't it? Because of all the technology we have at our disposal, and like for example, we were talking about AI the other week, and there was an article recently in a newspaper I read about the so-called AI slop.
Yeah,
meaning all the bad artwork that comes out thanks to AI and how it sort of proliferates on social media, and it's all to do with getting clicks and all that kind of stuff. Naturally, obviously.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who he's a software engineer, and I said, do you not think that AI will basically just supersede humanity, particularly when it comes to things like arts and visual design and graphic design? And he was quite firmly of the opinion that no, that won't happen, because essentially there'll be so much AI art and AI will be trained on more AI art. It will just become this cycle of slop, as he put it.
Yeah,
and
I see that.
Maybe he's right, maybe he's not. I mean, we'll find out, but it's quite interesting.
I see that. I still stand by my points from last time. I think when will the line be unblurred to the point where I think AI has brought a new definition to cheating on your homework. You now no longer need your friend to text you a screenshot of what he's done, because you can just be like, this is what I've got to write. Can you make it? And then can you make it sound like me based on all of these documents I'll upload, so that it learns to
smart
talk like you.
It's better at being you than you are, potentially.
100%. So it does make me wonder again with art, as it learns to do art better, will there become a point where you just I don't know. I still think of us in terms of Wall-E.
Becoming the fat
Disney
blobs.
film, the blobs with the screens with the little hover chairs.
We're kind of halfway there already, aren't we?
I think so.
You know?
I think so. And interesting enough, I had this conversation with someone the other day. I don't think, or it might have actually been yesterday, I don't think we've, as a society, ever recovered from COVID, in my opinion.
Do you mean in any particular way, or do you mean just sort of overall as a society, economically?
I don't know, it just feels different. No, I think just as in general, like people in general, when you see people or observe people, I don't think, and even I don't feel the same from aftermath of COVID.
In a particular way, like for you personally, or is it more like a general feeling?
More like a general feeling, but also I'm definitely not as social. And I feel like there seems to be less, I don't know how, but there seems to be less time and people having less time for each other. And
do you think people are a little more concerned with perhaps the preciousness of time, and they feel like they're a lot more rushed than they were before?
Maybe you're right.
But then I wonder if that's more to do with, well, actually, I was going to say maybe that feeling is the result of the technology that we have now. For example, AI creating so much stuff, it becoming very easy to do, technology making everything easier to do than ever. But that being said, as we all know, because of COVID, that acted as a catalyst for people working from home far more and relying on technology way more. You know, from everything, from schools to ordering food, you know, to work, everything. So maybe that's expedited the process, and we're one step closer to becoming the blobs.
The blobs. I think what is scary is I always like the idea of, and I vaguely I was vaguely there when I did my last trip to the Lake District, having a social detox. But even then, it's like we got lost on a trail. You bring up your phone and you're like, oh no, the trail's like a few yards left of us, and you're back on the trail. And I think what sparks me is that having a social detox, and in my mind, I go to like Lapland or somewhere in some kind of glass igloo type place with just no phone, no nothing, and just, go hiking in the day and maybe source your own food or something. Really just ground yourself. But actually, how difficult that is now.
Well, because we're all hyper connected all the time.
Not only that, but it's also made a necessity through, your banking is on your phone. So if you do need to venture to the hardware store or to the shop for something, and your bank's saying, this isn't working, and, one sign in on your phone and you can see everything that's going on within your bank. That's just a small example. Or, you fall or something happens as an emergency and you need your phone. Once upon a time, you'd walk to the nearest town, you'd find a phone booth, which we know have all been like torn down now. So I think it's nearly impossible.
Or worse still, you'd have to go to a library and find a book on the thing you wanted to know about.
Yeah. You can't just ask AI.
No. Well, that's another thing, isn't it? Because, you could Google everything.
Yeah.
And look for an answer that someone might have posted on a forum or written an article about on a website. And now you can just ask AI, what's the answer to this? How do I do this?
Yeah.
And it'll be like, right, but this isn't working. Oh, we'll do this.
Yeah.
And it's made it even easier.
And that's what I like about AI as opposed to Google, because I am slightly guilty. I do use it. And what I like about it is you Google and you have to find a certain thing. You might Google, maybe I'm just not very good at Googling, but you Google and you find an article and it's not quite what you were looking for. So you scan another article, you scan another one. Well, AI has a tendency of grabbing everything and choosing exactly what you want about what you've asked it to find out, which I think is very powerful. There's no longer a need to scan the internet, really.
Oh, it's just so useful. I literally did that very thing, that very process the other day. I've just switched to Mac. I've got a MacBook.
Oh, yes.
And I wanted to use the Enter key like you do on a Windows PC, because I have no shame. And I wanted to use Enter to just open stuff. If I select a file or I scroll to a file using the arrow keys, direction keys, I want to just press Enter and have it open the file. And it doesn't do that. And so I Googled around and couldn't find like a good answer. And then I just said to AI, how do I do this? And it said, right, here are your three options. The first two didn't work at all. And I was like, okay, let me try the third option. Got deep into the third option and it was like, oh, well, you need to write this bit of code. And I said, well, I can't code. I have no idea how to do that. Can you do it for me? And it went, yeah, here you go. Here's the code.
No way.
And unfortunately, the code didn't work, but because I'd got that far and that deep in, once I'd got this software installed, I could then use the software to get to where I needed to go. But if it hadn't been for AI, I probably would have come across the software and what to do eventually, but it would have taken me a lot longer.
Yeah.
So it saved me a lot of time. Just so useful.
Yeah, it is. It's amalgamated into our lives now. And I think there is and was potential to make some serious money through AI, because even I've seen, we get a lot of spam mail through work, and a lot of our spam mail at the moment, albeit spam, I think it is what's the word? It is a valuable thing now and becoming a thing. And if it wasn't spam, there's definitely companies that integrate. So say you've got a contact us form on your website, you can now integrate AI that will automatically reply if it thinks it can. So you basically input everything that AI would need to know about your business, and, in terms of pricing and what to say here and, everything. And most of that it actually can learn from your website in general.
Sure.
And then it gives that person a response, and you still get the email and the response. So if you're like, oh shit, that's not what I wanted to put at all, then you can reply yourself and say, look, this was an automated response, but such
Interesting.
and such.
Huh.
But on the whole, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and it's only getting better. I think we're on, in terms of chat GDP, I think we're on version 4 now.
GDP. Is that chat GPT?
GPT, I think. Yeah, sorry, I'm butchering that.
Oh, well, you never know. Gross domestic product AI coming soon.
Yes,
maybe. It amazes me because you think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everyone was on CDs. We just come off tape to cassette, basically. Yeah. And you think about where we are now. Everything's digital. Everything's streamed. We've got AI. Yeah. And it's already producing fantastic works of art. I say fantastic in the sense that they're very convincing. They're very cool to look at. Convincing in the sense that it's not just a random mess. You can type in a prompt and it will do a very convincing job. Yeah. It's very good at what it does. And you think that's where we are now. Where are we going to be in another 10, 20, 30 years' time? I think we touched on this, didn't we, the other week? Yeah. When talking about video games and virtual reality and stuff. It's going to be crazy what comes along.
I know. I think it is. I think it is. I think, as we've said, I think scary that we every step we take towards this makes life easier and makes us one step closer to blobs.
Yeah.
I think because undoubtedly the biggest thing that AI has done for all of us, or for anyone who uses it, is just make life easier. Automate tasks that before were a lot harder to automate, and do it in such a intelligent way by learning continually, which is what I think is crazy about the potential of AI making movies and being in games and things like that, is procedural generated. No two runs of a game will ever be the same because the non-playable characters are continually changing their response based on what you do as a player. And in movies, I don't know if we spoke, I think we did briefly speak about it. I'm sure I read that Bruce Willis has signed a form that says when it gets to a point, you can take all of his previous movies and things, and AI can then structurally generate him into movies in the future. So essentially we could see a Die Hard 16 in 50 years of Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
As his younger self.
And I'd love to know how that works economically. Does his estate get the money, or does his descendants get all the money?
Hopefully.
Do they get paid? How much do they get paid? Because it's not a real performance, but it's based on him. So you're selling the idea of him almost.
Yeah. But I mean, Die Hard wouldn't be they sort of fell off the road getting the newer ones, but he is Die Hard.
He is Die Hard, yeah. Similar thing in music. You look at a thing like The Voyage by ABBA. ABBA's digital show. I haven't seen it myself, but everyone I've spoken to says it's phenomenal and incredible. There is a live band playing, but their holograms are on stage. So it's young holograms that look like it's really them on stage. Wow. Of course, they're not them. They're thousands of miles away doing whatever.
That's a good point, actually. Music. Does that not ever... Have you ever thought about the potential that you could type in a prompt to AI and say, look, love this song, want something reasonably similar?
As far as I'm aware, it's already happening. It's already happening. And what I heard recently was someone had taken Slipknot's first album, self-titled, and they said, rewrite this album as if it was, say, an 80s boy band. And it did it. And obviously it sounds a bit funky and a bit weird, but it worked. It did it, and it was all AI generated.
Wow!
I thought that was incredible. And coming back to what we were saying earlier, that's only going to get better, and that's only going to improve. Yeah. And I think it'd be silly of me to pretend that but people are always going to want real musicians. Maybe they won't. At the moment, people still like live music, and I can still make a decent chunk of my living playing live music. But I think that's probably in jeopardy in the long term. Probably. Teaching less so, because most of my bread and butter is teaching. But luckily so far, I think we're a lot further away from AI being able to teach than it is to be able to generate music, which it's already doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes, because people are using AI to help them generate music. For example, you can say, create me a chord sequence in the style of this artist, but make it sound more futuristic. Wow. Or what would it sound like if this artist was playing piano with this type of artist's drum beats.
Yeah.
And it'll come up with stuff like this. And
Wow.
to me, that's mind-blowing. But also then it begs the question, well, eventually, what's the point of having human creativity? And some people would say, but it loses that human element. And my girlfriend said this. She said, for example, with film and acting, but it'll lack that human element. And I said, yeah, but what happens when it synthesizes the human element?
Yeah.
If we're already struggling to tell the difference between an AI-generated work of art, say an old master, for example, and a real old master, an oil painting, what have you, name your example. If we're already struggling now to tell the difference, where's that going to lead us in 5, 10, 20 years' time?
Well, I think we all saw the video of, was it Biden? Someone generated a video of him coming on stage and saying some awful stuff.
Oh, I didn't see that. I haven't seen that. I have to watch that.
And that's not bad. Like, you can tell, but it's not bad.
As in, it's close to.
I mean, anyone, if you knew what sort of knew about the AI space, you'd know. But if you were just like my parents, for example, maybe watching that, they would probably sit there and think, oh God, what was he just, what?
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
A friend of mine did that with an AI Johnny Cash cover of Barbie Girl. It's Johnny Cash playing Barbie Girl on his guitar and singing. And it sounds very convincing. People like you and I might be able to go, apart from the obvious context of the song, we'd go, I can tell that's an AI generated voice. But he played it to his dad, and his dad literally said, I had no idea Johnny Cash wrote Barbie Girl. But like dead serious, because to him that was Johnny Cash, And even now I think we mentioned it the other week, people on some talk shows or social commentary channels on YouTube, I hear them say more and more now, this is not AI generated. They have to disclaim that. They have to say that. They
do. So with all of that, I think there will become a distinction. You're right. On your girlfriend's point, there will at some point be a case of I don't think you'll be able to tell. I think there will become a time where it almost will learn for itself.
Ooh, now that's
and it will learn over time that what it used to produce isn't good enough. How can it make it better? And it will start improving its own mistakes or its own flaws to the point where it just makes some wild stuff. Do I ever think we as general public will ever get access to something like that? Probably not. Because I don't know. I think my biggest thing, we breached about it last time. So I'll mention it quick, but when will video evidence become not a thing?
That's the thing, isn't it? Because if you can bring a video to a court of law, you get AI to analyze it, but then is the AI reliable? Who's programmed it? Someone programmed it to...
And will there always be an argument to say why a computer...
That evidence is admissible because it's just AI generated.
A computer is telling you that it was generated by AI, but how do we know the computer's not tampered with?
Or just made a mistake.
Yeah.
I think to me, that's the slightly more pernicious side of it. It's one thing to say, AI music's going to take my job. Maybe it will eventually, or it'll take artists' jobs, or it'll take writers' jobs, and so on and so forth. But that's one thing. But to look at the possibilities you've just highlighted, that it could essentially end up being used to tamper with evidence or provide false evidence or dismiss real evidence, that's scary. To me, that's more scary than the evolution of the jobs market.
Yeah, because it is, video evidence in the last, even 10 years has become such, a scary thing, because I don't know how anyone gets away with anything nowadays with the amount of Ring cameras. And what was really interesting is the really sad case of that girl, Sarah, who lost her life with that police officer during sort of COVID time, only in Great Chart. And really, really cool the way they did it. And they found him and he's now getting justice. But they pieced together, they reworked his whole journey by piecing together Ring doorbell cameras.
Wow.
It is
Wow.
awesome. Google it when you get home and look at the video they pieced together, and you can literally, it switches to
chronological-
door camera, and they followed
Wow.
him and then got him on a different road, and then they had cameras above the bridges over the dual carriageways and motorways, so they kept him on there. And when he came off, they caught him on mooring, like crazy. So I don't know how anyone gets away with anything now. So video evidence is really powerful to piece together that piece by piece step of where she was, where she got picked up, whose car that was, etc., etc. And that, without that, I think I don't know. I think that was a crucial bit of evidence that may or may not have led to his arrest.
Sure.
But where does that then lead to? Well, that wasn't me. I was at home with my wife.
Yeah, and if the wife says that
Yeah.
you were, then that's an alibi.
That's AI.
That's false evidence.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not if there's hundreds of doorbell cameras that have caught you, because they're unlikely.
Perhaps
to
not
all
now,
be.
but then you think in the future, let's say that, I mean, this just, I'm thinking out loud here, but just imagine that the government doesn't like someone. They don't like someone's opinion. All of a sudden, you've got footage of them doing something illegal on their own. There's footage of you performing this illegal activity. I don't know, for example, doing drugs or whatever it happens to be. And they said, well, I wasn't there. I was at home. Oh, can anyone vouch for you? Well, I was home on my own. Oh, there's no evidence of that. Oh, the security cameras will. Oh no,
Yes.
they show that you're not in the house. And all of a sudden you think, oh, great.
Yeah, but the flip side of that, I just thought of, okay, so for example, you get a speeding ticket. This is a really low sort of crime, but say you get a speeding ticket. Oh, actually, the car was sat on the drive all day. And you get AI to...
I'm going to try that
put
next
the
time I get a
car on
speeding
the-
ticket.
AI just puts the car in your security camera all day.
Mm.
And it's like, the car was at home. My plates must have been stolen. To the point, that could be the way, is actually I was at home with my wife. Oh, we'll prove it. We'll have a look at my security camera. And you can AI your own video.
AI your own
instead.
video. Yeah, and be like, there's evidence of my car. Oh, gosh. That's quite tempting, actually.
Yeah.
I'll do that
Now,
next time.
I've thought
My
about
car
it.
wasn't
Like,
on the road. Prove it. Well, yeah, here's a video. Here's
Yeah.
his photo evidence, and it's got the metadata. And
prove that it was me.
yeah.
Like, my plates were stolen, officer.
Get out of jail free card, isn't it? Which would be
Maybe.
nice. Yeah. Or, go onto ChatGPT and say, right, I've been caught speeding. Can you go into the system and get rid of all traces?
Yeah.
All done.
Yeah.
Sleep well.
Yeah, that would be a dream. But yeah, there'll be hundreds of criminals watching this now. Like, what I can
I
do.
need to go back into software engineering.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do it.
No, I doubt it. But yeah.
The future is very, very exciting.
Exciting, I think. Yeah. We'll sort of ride the wave and see, and maybe actually it will get so scary, it will change to being scary, and we'll wish and long for that life of self-sufficientness that we were talking about earlier.
And grounding ourselves and being present, and being up that nice mountain or that valley.
Yeah.
And that's another ironic thing, is that sometimes when I do guided meditation, I'll use my phone to do it. And it's still effective. It still works. And I still find it very useful. But I'm also aware of the irony of having to ground myself and be present rather than being distracted by technology. And I'm using technology to help me do that.
Yeah.
Which, that's not to say it doesn't work, but I'm conscious of the irony of that, relying on that thing to help me do something.
Yeah, it is true. It's even like, what we're recording now, a podcast. Sometimes to help me get to sleep if I'm struggling, I'll put on a podcast. And it may be sometimes I choose the ones that I'm really not into, but actually sometimes those ones are the ones where I learn the most, because although I thought I wasn't into this specific thing, I end up like learning so much about something completely random. But I kind of then dream the scenarios that they're talking about, which leads me to fall asleep.
Interesting.
A little bit like when I read a book, I almost play a movie in my head of that book.
Yeah.
So I play the book in my head as if I'm watching it as a movie. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. It's like you're visualizing the story.
100%. That's the better word. And that's the same with a podcast. I visualize, they're this great story, or Graham Hancock and his LiDAR scanning the rainforest and things. And I'm in the rainforest, just LiDAR scanning it all. That's me flying the drone.
Nice.
But yeah, so a sleep aid, whereas once upon a time, I don't know what you do, but joss sticks in the room or something. Not for me personally, but whereas, I'm using my phone, which people say, you need to have no screens for 2 hours before bed. And
Yeah, I've read that as well, yeah.
I've read that and listened to in podcasts that in the morning, you're best off just not even looking at your phone, getting at least 10 minutes of sunlight before doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking water is the first thing that goes into your body, which I do try and do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, getting your face into the sun and just getting that fresh air.
I think it's really important, and it's relatively very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people, and I mentioned it to you earlier, but I'm reading a book called "Why Am I So Effing Tired?" That's literally the title of the book by Dr. Amy Shah. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. And one of the very many useful points or tips she gives you in the book is to, as you've just said, get outside in the morning sunlight first thing. I think the only criteria she gives is before 10 a.m.
Right.
and try and get 20 minutes. And interesting, she says even if it's cloudy or foggy, do it, because even when it's cloudy or foggy or miserable, your body can still absorb some of those UV rays, and it helps keep your circadian rhythm in check.
Yeah,
that's why it's a good thing to do. So that's what I try and do every morning. I'll just go outside and go for a short walk.
Yeah,
just to wake myself up and start the day.
One thing I do need to get back into, as it runs along similar lines, and I never thought I'd be someone who enjoys or even faces ice bath.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it's on my balcony, and I was bought one, and so
someone bought you an ice bath.
Someone bought
what
me
a gift.
one. What a gift! And I'd always.
It wasn't like an ironic present or tongue-in-cheek present, was it?
I'd always kind of wanted to try it, but equally deep down, I'd always said, "Oh, why would I? Anyone who does that is crazy."
Just quickly, what is an ice bath in that context? Like, is it similar to a paddling pool? I mean,
no, it's about the size of you. So you is literally enough room for you to be sitting.
Right. Okay.
You leave it outside. In the summer, if it's warm, add some ice. Ideally, you want it 0 or below.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you have does it go with a thermometer?
No, but I had one. I had a floating one from when I used to have one of those blow up hot tub things.
Cool.
That is so expensive to run.
But not if it's an ice bath.
Not if it's an ice bath. And actually, that was one of the first things I do every morning. And not only was it on the balcony, so I equally got that sun, equally the shock of the cold set me up for every single day.
Oh, wow. Did it make you feel good as well?
Yeah, because apparently it increases your dopamine levels by like 150% or something.
Wow.
How true that is, I've not done the relevant research, so don't quote me on that. But from what I heard, that's what it does.
And how much of that in your experience was the genuine rush of the cold versus just being relieved to get warm again, having been so cold? Or is that not even a factor?
Interestingly, you get used to it.
Really?
It gets easier. Interestingly. So you actually don't mind. You start out and you cannot wait to get that towel around you. And then like a few weeks in, you're just walking to the bathroom to get a towel, or the towel's out on the balcony.
Rather than like, oh God, I'm so cold. Oh. Wow.
So for example, in my case, I'd grab the towel as soon as I got out, and then fast forward a week, 2 weeks, I was putting the lid on, putting the cover on, and doing all of that, and then stepping inside, then I've got a towel robe.
Oh, nice! No, very sensible.
The towel robe over me, and
yeah.
So you do get used to it, and it's also there's less of a build up when you first start. You stand outside and think, "I'm an idiot.
What am I doing?
Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?" Whereas like you get to a point where you're like, right, I'm going to press go on the timer and I'm getting in, and you just do it. And then you start out with a minute, or you try and aim for a minute. And then by the end, you're like 3 minutes, and it's like, and your body kind of adapts. And like after a certain amount of time sitting in there, you're not
cold anymore.
You just kind of relax, and you're like just sitting in there just for sitting in there.
Wow.
It is strange. And the biggest thing I noticed was with doing sort of any form of weightlifting your muscles tend to be quite sore as they're rebuilding.
Mm.
None of that.
Is that because it's anti-inflammatory?
I guess so.
So I think I read somewhere. I read it's anti-inflammatory. I don't know why. I don't know if that's because it causes the blood vessels to contract.
Probably
because of the cold. The great drummer, the drum whisperer, Dave Elitch, said in an interview with Vic Firth that after you've played like a long gig and you've used your body to the max, you should put your arms in some ice water, basically, in like a small ice bath, just to help with inflammation, help muscle recovery. And presumably it's exactly the same thing as what you've just said.
Yeah, essentially pretty much identical. Another thing I noticed I didn't get, which I need to get back into using it, to be honest, is my joints. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and my joints are just so, it's like they need warming up to start working.
Need a good oiling.
Yeah.
Is that all over or specific parts?
Specifically my hands. And I do have, on my mum's side, arthritis in the family. Specifically her mum suffers with it really bad. So touch wood, hopefully, hopefully it's not that. At least not for a long time, but they're fine. Just sometimes they just ache in the mornings. I've heard turmeric is really good for that.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But so I do, or I used to. I ran out 2 weeks ago, but I was taking turmeric every day as a supplement.
If you can, take it with a bit of oil and black pepper.
Yeah,
because apparently this is from the fatigue book. Apparently, it increases the uptake by something silly like 200%. The medicinal uptake.
Interesting. I think black pepper was included in the capsule.
Was it now? There you go.
Oil, I don't think was. Not as far as I read.
Probably would mix well in a capsule, but black pepper would definitely have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Because every time I put turmeric in my eggs, I'll always add a little bit of oil, usually chili oil to give it that little bit of kick.
Oh, lovely.
And lots of black pepper. I mean, it tastes great anyway, but it just helps with the uptake of the medicinal qualities of the turmeric, apparently.
No,
but I'm not a doctor, so you can't quote me on that either.
I can believe it. But
do you still take ice baths, by the way?
No, it's been a long time. It's been a few months. I got busier with life, and then it's because I don't put chlorine in it. You have to regularly clean it out, especially in the summer as the water warms up and cools down, day and night cycle.
Sure. Is that just because of like natural bacteria from your skin and stuff like that?
Yeah. So it goes green and a little bit slimy very quickly, especially in the summer.
Are we talking like a few days or like a week, or does it vary?
I'd say it varies, but I noticed, I think if you use it every day, it takes longer, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, from my experience.
That seems so counterintuitive. You'd think the opposite would be true.
Yeah. But Dad also did say just buy some of those chlorine cubes, and they slowly, if you get one of those floating chlorine diffusers, it will slowly just put the chlorine in the water, and actually you'll be fine to go for a long time on that.
Oh, interesting.
So I didn't try that, but I should.
I see why
to get back into it.
I guess it's the convenience of having the chlorine, so you don't have to keep changing the water all the time. Yeah. But then equally, I can see why some people would rather not have any chlorine, just have clean water.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know enough about it to know if that warrants not or definitely using the chlorine.
I'd say probably it's better for your skin not to have, because it's such a small area and volume of water based on, because those chlorine tabs are meant for either pools or jacuzzis.
I see, rather than a small body size ice
bath. So I don't think they make ice bath chlorine, but maybe that's a good
idea. Or maybe you can get like smaller tabs or something, or marketing idea, make your own chlorine tabs.
Yeah.
I want 2%.
Well, we just Jamie and Joe's chlorine tabs.
JJ's chlorine.
JJ's chlorine.
The only experience I've ever come close to that, apart from jumping in the ocean when it was freezing cold, was waking up with a raging hangover at a friend's house, and he had one of those. It's like the next level up from like a giant inflatable swimming pool, where it's made of like wood, and you fix all the panels together, you put the lining in, and it's like a summer thing, and then you're supposed to like drain it, take the cover out, and you break the panels down, and you can stow it away in the shed or whatever.
Yeah.
They just left it out all year. and I forget what time of year it was, but it was autumnal, and it was pretty cold. And I don't know how cold the water was. It wasn't zero, but it was. To memory, it was because he had, like you said, he had one of those floating things in the pool. But regardless, it was freaking cold. And I just jumped in my trunks, not fully clothed, of course. But I just jumped in, and actually, it was a real shock. But after 5 minutes, I just felt so much better. I was like, I feel so awake and refreshed and ready to go. So
it definitely does something. I would like to do the research and obviously listen to a few more Huberman podcasts.
He's big into that kind of stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he was the main, because he's big on swimming in Icelandic seas and
savage.
Yeah, for a long time as well.
And there's us at home like, oh, let me run a hot bath with extra lavender oil.
I know.
Stuff.
But I think he also like swims underwater under ice. Like there'll be two holes in the ice, and he'll swim from one to the other, which gives me massive. I could never. That just anxiety induces.
Yeah, I wouldn't be up for that personally.
I think the adrenaline and also the cold would do something. Like the feeling of completing that after would feel amazing.
Probably makes you feel very alive.
Yeah, there's probably no better feeling than doing that successfully and getting out the other side. But equally, imagine just not finding that hole.
I can't imagine not being able to find the hole. That would not be a good thing.
No.
Speaking of doing things that make you feel alive and going through intense experiences, one thing that we touched on the other week, but didn't really have time to explore, was going through difficult things and very challenging things that help you, if you use them in the right way, help you improve as a person. And I think that was a really interesting, important thing that I wanted to discuss with you.
Yeah, and I was excited to get back into this week actually, because there was a few things that I think we didn't necessarily. I had an amazing time last, should we say, part one?
Yeah,
or just last episode. We could make it a few monthly thing where we just come on, catch up. But there was a few things, and that was one of them. And I think it's an important thing in both of our lives, perhaps as well. Going through those things, and it almost not necessarily changing the trajectory of your life, but actually sort of honing in certain attributes and skills and what makes you as a person and what you can stand for going forward, if I'm right in saying that. But I'd love to know sort of your take and sort of what you went through and the changes after.
Sure. Two of the biggest things that I found the most challenging have definitely been romantic breakups. I'm very lucky in that thus far, I haven't had any serious deaths in the family. There's no one as of yet I've been really close to whose death I've experienced. And obviously we all know it's coming.
Yeah.
But you can't really prepare for that. But yeah, I've been very lucky in that I haven't had that experience yet. So for me, the most difficult times of my life have been when I've had relationships end. And that's been a really, really difficult thing for me. And I naturally tend to be a very sensitive person. And I don't like to be that way, but I am. And I think part of being a mature individual is knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, these kinds of things, be it a friendship or a relationship, I tend to feel very intensely. So for me, what I'm sure to a lot of people would have been just, oh, it's just a breakup, it's not the end of the world. For me, it felt like the end of the world. And I'm sure there are lots of people who've been through the same thing. So often you think, oh, this is all happening to me and why am I going through this? And then you realize over time and talking to people and reading things online that actually this happens to a lot of people all of the time.
Loads.
But it never feels that way.
No. And interestingly, you mentioned about never losing, or touch wood, not yet losing someone in the family. Actually, breakups tend to be a certain kind of grief in their own right.
Really?
Because you're losing someone who is close to you at that point and is, in your mind, part of your family.
Oh, that's so
And
interesting.
you know, for a lot of people, relationships are a relationship. You don't look past the relationship, because actually, why would you be in a relationship unless you wanted this person in your future long term? So that relationship becomes, you know, losing that person becomes grieving that person, because it's the end of, you know, the relationship itself.
You've lost them in some way, on
Yeah,
some level.
exactly.
That's fascinating. That reminds me of I think it was in a book by Paul McKenna and Hugh Wilburn, and the book was called "I Can Mend Your Broken Heart," which I remember even when I bought it when I was grieving, I thought that's a bit cheesy, but it was actually a very good book. And interestingly enough, there's a bit where they talk about types of grief and what it's like to lose someone, as you've just said. And what you just said reminded me of a bit where a woman was having counselling for her husband who died.
Yeah.
And in amongst the therapy, she said that she felt guilty because, as much as it hurt to lose her second husband because he died, she didn't feel as sad as when her first husband cheated on her and left, but was still alive. And she felt guilty because she thought, well, you know, he's died. Like, death is absolutely fine. It wasn't his fault. But then why did I feel more sorrow at my first husband who left me and cheated on me? And it was interesting because the therapist or the counselor explained that it's because when your second husband died, there was no question of his love for you.
Yeah.
You knew he loved you, and he knew you loved him. There's no question of that. But with the first relationship, it calls everything into question, and it's a lot more hurtful to our egos, and you know, poetically speaking, our hearts in that sense. And what you just said reminded me of that, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, no, and that's true. You know, he loved her till the very end, and she lost him due to him passing away. And the other sense is she was betrayed by her first partner. And I think being cheated on leaves you with a lot of questions. And
massively,
big time. So yeah. So in your case, do you mind me asking what happened?
No, go for it. So I've been through two very painful breakups. The first one, I was only 23, I think, or if not 22. Actually, I'm glad I'm struggling to remember this. Oh yes, it was on the 14th of September, 1987, at 6:05 in the evening. So yeah, I was 22, 23, and we'd only been together for about 14 months. And it was the first time I'd ever been in love. I'd never been in love with someone before. And, you know, they say, you know, the classic first cut is the deepest, all this kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of weight to that because, you know, you don't forget your first love, so to say. I mean, at least I haven't yet.
No.
And,
but yeah, I think, so they say you never forget your first love, but
thanks.
I mean, yeah. I think you never forget. Yeah, I guess you never forget the wounds, depending on how it ended.
And I think you can let that cripple you and remain a nasty scar, or you can see it as a battle wound that you learn from. And I think how you choose the next stages of your life and what you do as a result of that will determine the outcome. I forget the author, but there's a great book by a grief counselor. I say it's a brilliant book, and then I struggle to remember what the title is. But it's called Getting Past Your Breakup, and the subtitle, which I love, is How to Turn a Devastating Loss into the Best Thing That Ever Happened to You. Yeah. And unfortunately, I can't remember the author. Maybe you can put that in the podcast notes. But what I love about that subtitle is that the answer to how to turn a devastating loss into the best thing that ever happened to you is simply by the choices that you make in order to make that the truth, in order to make that the reality. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I was, you know, distraught by the end of this relationship. And I got some professional help to help me get through it because it lasted so long. I mean, it took me about 2 years to sort of feel normal again. And, after a year, I would beat myself up and think, why am I still feeling like this? This is ridiculous. Why does this hurt so much? It's just a breakup. No one died.
Yeah.
But over time, over that 2-year period and beyond, I was able to turn all that negative energy, all that rage and hurt and pain and difficulty and self-pity and all the rest of it. Slowly, I was able to channel that into something more positive and use the pain as a catalyst for growth rather than letting it consume me and make me bitter. And I think being able to use that negative energy in a positive way, in my opinion, that's the only right choice to make. That's the only right thing to do as a result of going through that.
Yeah.
And I ended up building my drum studio as a result of that, deciding that's what I wanted to do and making, a huge swathe of progress in my life. And who knows where I would be if I hadn't gone through that, if I hadn't had that experience. I don't think I'd be where I am now. So being able to use that difficulty in a constructive way, that's the way to go. And in a way, I look back and I think, would I go through it again? I'd rather not, but I don't regret it happening. And it's so nice to be able to sit here and say that and know that it's true. I don't regret that it happened because it made me who I am. But it only made me who I am because of the choices I made.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe you've had some similar experiences or
big time.
You.
Big time. The one thing I would say is I think my first if we say quote unquote love, I was younger. I would have been 16, my first serious girlfriend and someone who at the time I loved. Very betrayed, but I think we were together, I think a year and a half. I don't actually fully remember. This is a long time ago now. But I didn't learn from that, and it wasn't. And I think that maybe the difference in my maturity level at the time, and still young, still going through certain things and figuring out who I was as a person. So I wasn't ready to make steps to change me. And then fast forward sort of a few different, not serious relationships, but encounters, shall we say.
Yeah.
And then my second sort of longer term partner, after we ended, we weren't together all that long, really. I'd say sub a year, if not breaching a year. Again, I'm not saying they didn't hurt, because they all hurt, especially their first one. And I channeled the second one a lot more into I want to better who I am from where I am currently, and we started that together. So I was already kind of on that train of I want to get fitter and things like that. So those small changes. The biggest one for me has been my most recent one, whether that be because we met, I think, when I was either 20 or 21, and we were together for 7 years.
Wow.
And that was big. And I think was what led really to me finally committing to this. It was a lot of this was granny, but actually I say that, it was, I wanted to finally be me, if that makes sense. Because there was, for a long time, I hadn't felt myself. And I think what it's taught me a lot of is, obviously there's compromise in relationships. There always will be, you're two different people amalgamating into one, nearly. But there's certain things that I don't want to compromise as a person, because it makes me feel like I'm changing who I am, certain things that define me. And I think that's been the interesting takeaway, is now dating, and I've met someone amazing who supports me in every way. And what's weird is there's nothing I can bring up that isn't spoken about. There's no conflict. We speak about it in a conversational manner, and even things that we both disagree on, sometimes, which actually has only really happened once, saying, look, I wasn't best pleased. This is why. Yeah, I see how you felt like that, but it wasn't meant in that way. But next time I'll keep that in mind. And then that's over. And there's no bickering or like upfrontalness or anything like that. And that's been really refreshing as well. Because there's a lot now. I know what I want, and I know who I am as a person. I know that I won't compromise on certain things. So yeah, I was just a massive long-winded thing.
No. Well, thank you for sharing it. Do you feel that you said that there are some things, obviously, you know yourself quite well now, and there are things you're not willing to compromise on, and I can tell that you know that quite confidently in and of yourself.
Yeah.
To what extent do you think that has arisen as a result of those previous experiences within other relationships?
I felt changed as a person in many ways. And there's two sides to every story. And I think I was made to feel guilty for certain things that I wanted to do and for not spending the time with that person. And I wanted to go out and, ride motorbikes with the boys. And it's like, oh, what time will you be back? And I'll be back sort of around 7 or something, but actually I'd quite like to stay, and then being made to feel guilty about staying, and then not getting home at 7 because actually you're having a barbecue and all the boys are having a laugh and a beer around the fire and stuff after 8 hours of riding your motorbike around some wood or their wood, and then getting a text like, where are you, why aren't you back? And it's just, and that's a relatively small thing, but it's it's me to want to have that time to spend with my friends, to have that time. And I think it's important for us all to have that time separate from our partners.
Sure. No,
but it was made, in some ways, it was made to make me feel like I was wasting that time that we could be spending together, if that makes sense. And I was made to feel wrong for that. And it got to the point where I'm just going to get in trouble. I'm probably not going to be back at said time, so I'm just not going to bother.
Sure.
And it just got to the stage where I would do nothing else but just be at home. And then it got really unhealthy, where mental health was massively declined because we weren't doing anything apart from just spending that time at home together. And we were both ended up miserable, watching TV virtually most of the time when we were at home, and just getting annoyed at each other for just the stupidest things because we're so low, because we're not helping each other grow.
No. And you weren't being true to yourself.
No.
Because you weren't going out and doing the things that you genuinely wanted to do.
No. So although the breakup was hard, in some ways it was easier. And it would go through stages of being really easy and then really hard. And what I mean by that is I had a vision of what it was like and what I wanted it to be like still.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking to myself, I've got to end it. And then say, well, maybe like we've had this argument and we've both said we're going to work on things and maybe it will get better. And so another couple of months would go by, and then I'd get really down and something would happen. And then there was this time where we had a break. And in my eyes, you have a break, and that's like the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And, apologies if anyone has had a break and it's worked for you, but
well, there are exceptions to the.
There are always exceptions, yeah, to every rule. But for me, in my head, I think once you have a break, it's
writing's on the wall.
Yeah, and that was hard. That was really hard. And again, along the lines of I was made to feel guilty because we kind of set a few ground rules for this break. I voiced my opinion and said, I'm not for this. I don't want this to happen. And she was like, I think it would do us good. And I said, well, I'd like to check in like on the first weekend. She was like, I think it's better if we have no contact. So then I kept myself really busy, and I planned to see friends on that weekend and have a really good weekend.
It's a good idea.
Guess what happened?
She didn't like that.
I got a message on that weekend saying, I'm really struggling. I really want to see you. And I said, I'm really sorry. Like, you made the decision to have no contact, and you also said it would be a minimum of 2 weeks. And so
You've made plans.
I've made plans.
Yeah, you've made plans, as any self-respecting individual would do.
And then it was, how can you do this? How can you not prioritize us, etc.?
You were guilt tripped.
A big time.
Right. Okay.
And so, yeah. And then the second week was over, and we met, and all of these, all of these sort of things were spoken about. And again, it was, okay, well, this has gone really well, and maybe this is a new leaf. And it just kept prolonging, sadly, the inevitable. And we did eventually. And I have some regrets that maybe I should have called it sooner.
Right, sure.
Rather
than sort of waiting and
and prolonging it out. And I don't think I equally handled it in the best manner, because it got to the point where I think on both sides, but definitely my side, we just got tired of just the relationship, I think. And where I'd been feeling this way for a while, I think that's what kind of made it easier. But I also think with such a long time, we were together for a long time.
Was that the 7 years?
Yeah, you want it to work, because and I try and not look at things as a waste of time, because I've grown as a person. I've created this. I've set myself boundaries on what I want for the future and what I want as a partner in the future. I want someone to work with, to, for us to support each other through everything.
Yeah,
and
someone to be your partner.
Yeah.
Rather than, your guilt tripping whipper, as it were.
I like the saying, someone to do life with.
Sure. Someone who lifts you up rather than drags you down.
Absolutely. So yeah, and touch wood, my current partner is fantastic. And yeah, she's I'm in the stud wall for this building. Not done a lot of woodwork in her life, but I was like, this is what we're gonna do. She's like, I want to come and help. And she was like, what can I do? I'm like, how stuck in do you want to get? And she's like, oh, I want to do stuff. And so she's there like routering stuff and chopping stuff with saws about the size of her. So and it's really nice, because it's you're working towards each other's goals. And it's like last weekend I went round and rewired some heaters for the family farm shop, and what else? We did loads of jobs, but they kind of amalgamate into one. But you help each other towards each other's goals and help each other grow as people. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. If that doesn't happen, I think, it's got to be a two-way street.
Definitely. It's got to be someone who works with you rather than makes you feel like you're working against them.
Yeah.
Or in spite of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad that you don't necessarily see it as a lot of people would do, as a waste, because I don't think none of my relationships, even the ones I look back and I think, gosh, I'm so glad that didn't work out. Even with those, I don't see it as a waste of time. I see it as beneficial. I think the way you see it says a lot about your character and what it means to you.
Yeah. And I equally don't hold any resentment or any anger towards it anymore. I've had partners that have cheated on me, and equally, I wish the best for them going forward, and I hope they grow as people. I wouldn't say hello to them on the street, mind you, but I still wish the best for them. And equally, my ex-partner of 7 years, I think in her own right, she's an amazing individual. But we just didn't work as two people together.
Or at least after that period of time.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like for a while you did work.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah. It was lovely for a while, and but yeah, at least not long term, or not who I think we met very young, and I think we undoubtedly grew into different people as we evolved and learned who we are, because they say the brain doesn't fully develop until you're around 24.
Yeah, I've read that. Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, we met, she was a year younger than me, and I think we just grew into different people. And I think, yeah, I'd hate to put her down in any way, because I think she needed someone who with different characteristics that perhaps weren't me.
Sure, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you grow together, and sometimes you grow apart. And,
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you want it to work, you just have to face reality and go, look, we've just grown apart.
Yeah. And perhaps the same. Oh, I mean, I know the same for me as well. Who we grew into, I needed someone that sadly wasn't her either.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I
think.
It's
a very human experience, and
so yeah. I think it's easy sometimes to see it as a waste of time, because it was undoubtedly 7 years, which in terms of life is currently is nearly a third of my life, which when you say it like that is we don't get long.
No, yeah.
So sometimes it is hard, but actually, I've, as I said, I've learned a lot of things on what I would and wouldn't tolerate going forward. And I think it's nice that I can stop myself in some aspects and think, actually, this is, on the grand scheme of things, very small. And I like currently my current partner and I, we were saying the other day, somehow arguments got brought up, and she was like, we've never argued, and I really don't know what we'd argue about. And I'm like, I equally have no idea.
And you said, you're wrong.
Yeah. But that's the nice thing, actually. I think it takes a lot to actually instead of having an argument, just have a conversation. If there's something that
big time,
if there's something that you're not satisfied by or that has annoyed you, I'd rather you come and say, look, you said this and you did something else. Don't do that. Or, talk about it and say, actually, I see what you mean. I didn't think of it or mean of it in that way, but I completely understand, and I'll aim to never do that again. If that affects you.
That's a very healthy way to go about it.
Yeah. Which I'm big for now.
I
think, excuse me, life's too short for conflict. There's too much of it going on in general.
Yeah, and God knows you'll get enough of it elsewhere anyway.
Yeah. So it's nice. It is nice. So yeah, in what ways would you say, growth-wise going forward, obviously your studio and things, what ways did it change you as a person, if you don't mind?
It's a very good question, yeah, because it's easy to point to the materialistic gains. I've done this and I've achieved that and I've made this money and blah, blah, blah. For me, it set me on a big, I don't like to use the word spiritual journey, but it set me on a journey in which I wanted to absorb as much information as possible. So I'm a bit of a sucker for absorbing information from books and articles and that kind of thing. So after my first breakup, I tried to absorb as much information as I possibly could about relationships. What makes a healthy relationship? Why do we fall for certain people? Why do relationships end? Why do we fall for that person and not that person? Why do they fall for us?
Interesting.
All that kind of stuff. And I probably read about a dozen books on the subject, amongst countless articles and interviews and that kind of thing. You want to say something?
Do you mind if I ask, was there something in the way that it ended that made you go on that trajectory? I'm not going to say this word. On that path.
A trajectory path. Nothing in particular, no. Because on the surface of it, fundamentally, the reason we broke up was because she wanted marriage and children, and I wasn't ready for that because I was 22, maybe 23. Yeah, I was 22 or 23. I was 23, and I wasn't ready to commit to that. And therefore the relationship ended because understandably she wanted someone to commit to her on that level. And I wasn't ready to do that. And at the time I didn't get that. I didn't understand it at all. But the main thing that spurred me on to go on that journey was just simply the amount of pain that it put me in. And I wanted to understand what was going on. I was feeling all of this sorrow and anger and confusion, and I wanted to understand what was happening. And to put it another way, I suppose without realizing it, I wanted to intellectualize, to invent a word, myself out of this pain. I thought if I can understand what's going on, understand why I'm feeling this way, why these things have happened, why this has come to be, if I can understand all of that, then maybe it will help me hurt less.
Yeah.
And to an extent it did, but I think you've got to do the emotional work on yourself as well. I think that's very important. You can't just say, oh, well, why has my dog died? Oh, well, past a certain age, blah, 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 the decay of cells, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But then at the end of the day, my dog still died and it hurts, right? So that was what set me off on that journey because I really wanted to understand. And I think in doing so, it definitely helped. It wasn't the be all and end all. And obviously to anyone who's going through this kind of stuff, learn from it, definitely, and use it as a catalyst for growth. But don't neglect the part of you that's just raw and very human. And if something hurts, it hurts, and you need to process that. You've got to feel it to heal it, definitely. And going on that journey of growth taught me a lot about relationships, about myself, about why I'm attracted to certain people, why certain people are attracted to me.
Oh,
and
really?
Definitely. And it meant that going forwards, I could go into my next relationship with a much more clear awareness of what was going on. And for example, you talked about healthy communication. I very rarely argued with my first partner. But my subsequent relationships, there were far fewer, if any, actual arguments because having done all this research into what makes a healthy, happy relationship, I was so much better prepared for the next one. If you go, perhaps it's not the best analogy, but if you go into battle and you're badly wounded, you have an after-action report. Okay, what happened? Why did it happen? What could I or we have done better? And you have this after-action report. And if you think about that in terms of your relationships, it just means that when the next one eventually comes along, you're better prepared to have an even better time than you already did.
Yeah.
And that for me has been the biggest emotional and psychological development following on from that very difficult struggle.
Wow.
But it's because I made the choices to make that the case. I could have just sat at home and cried into my pillow and felt sorry for myself, but then where would that have got me? Nowhere. Whereas deciding to do something about it, that was infinitely more rewarding.
Yeah. And undoubtedly now has led you into those happier, healthier relationships.
Definitely. I feel far more self-aware when it comes to relationships, how I'm showing up, how I'm acting. Again, I'm not perfect, no one is, but I'm far more aware than I ever have been. And I'm also far more aware about what it means to be in a relationship than I ever have been. And I think that's very important. And if you continue on that pathway of growth and learning from your mistakes and learning how to find someone with whom or for whom you are mutually beneficial, you will eventually end up with someone much better suited to you than you would have been otherwise without that experience. And that to me is where the real rewards lie. Oh, if I hadn't been through this, I wouldn't have met this person. If I hadn't gone through this, I wouldn't have handled this thing now as brilliantly as I did, for example.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really rewarding, really useful.
That's interesting. So I used to think like that when I was a kid. Completely different. And yeah, this is a bit weird that I'm leading on to this, but here goes. I lost my first dog. She was only 7 and she was attacked by next door's Labrador.
Oh, God.
Devastating. I was there, witnessed the whole thing. Dreadful. Subsequently, shortly after, my neighbors rang up and they said, we've just had this litter of Jack Russell puppies. You have to, you would know them, Paula and Richard.
Oh yeah.
And they rang up and they said, we've just had this litter. Why don't you walk over and come and look after them? And so I was in bits still, in pieces, and I was like, you know what, I think that would help. So I did, and I opened the door, and this tiny little Jack Russell, like the size of my hand, came running up to my feet. And I can't even explain it now, I instantly named her Lucy there and then.
No way.
Like that. And I never met anyone called Lucy. I still don't even know anyone called Lucy. And I can't explain it. She just became Lucy there and then. And then I went back pretty much every day after school and every day on the weekends, and looked after them. And then after 2 weeks, they were like, how would you feel if we gave you Lucy? And I was like, oh my God, awesome. And, so Lucy became part of the family. But I used to think, because undoubtedly I never forget the day that I lost T, it's ingrained in one of those traumatic experiences that will stay in my memory book forever, because that's how the brain works when it comes to trauma sometimes. And I used to think, damn, I wished that had never have happened, or I wished, the gate wasn't opened and maybe I'd still have T. But actually Lucy was such a fantastic dog, and if I hadn't have lost T, I wouldn't have had Lucy. And that's the similarity, is like, I'd always think, oh damn it, that was such a shit thing to have happened. Like, T was such a lovely dog, and I wish that had never have happened. But equally, Lucy was fantastic, and Lucy undoubtedly helped me through so much. And when I think I had Lucy for 13 and a half years, and undoubtedly eventually, sadly, cancer got her, but 13 and a half years took me from, I must have got her in that case when I was 12. So it took me from when I was 12 all the way up till I was 25. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, 13 years when you were 12.
Yeah,
you would be 25. Wow. And what a phase of life.
Exactly.
For her to accompany you on.
And she was my little best friend, and she literally came everywhere. And it sounds so weird. Like, I grew up sort of not loving your dogs like a member of the family, but not pamperizing them.
Yeah.
So, this new thing, and I'm completely for it now. Fergie is a nightmare in the car, but like these cages and seat belts for the dogs and stuff. I never had that growing up. You just opened the door,
in the back of the car.
The dog jumped in the car, and that was that.
Yeah.
Well, working with what we did, she came in the van every single day. She covered thousands of miles with me. She didn't need a seatbelt. And when people would like come and say, oh, I'm going to take your dog here for a walk and stuff, I used to be like, oh, how do you secure it in the car? I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, what do you mean? And then they come back, they were like, your dog is mental. So basically what she'd do is she'd put both paws on the dashboard. So she'd have her rear paws on the passenger seat, 2 front paws on the dashboard, and that's how she'd stay the whole journey everywhere.
No way.
And she'd visualize, she was that used to the car, she'd visualize corners. So for example, left turn, Lucy would lean to the left. So no, would she lean to the left or to the right?
If you're turning left, you're being pulled to the right.
Yeah, so she would lean left.
Yeah.
And balance on the dashboard.
No way.
Incredible dog.
Wow.
So she was joined at me to the hip. And so it is similar to the point where, as much as I wished that traumatic experience hadn't happened and I hadn't lost T, I wouldn't have experienced Lucy. And so that's similar in terms of relationships. In some ways, I'm not comparing losing a dog to relationships.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I know just what you mean. Sometimes out of the darkness comes the light.
Yeah.
From a difficult, traumatic experience, whether it's losing a loved one, a relationship, an animal, whatever, like that very difficult, horrible time can eventually lead to something much better.
Yeah. And I'm also a big believer in things happening when they're meant to happen. So, for example, I think sometimes if you meet someone who's great for you now, for example, like my current partner, if we met 5 years ago, wouldn't have worked.
Interesting. Interesting. I'd probably say the same thing about definitely about my previous relationship. If I'd met that person 5 years ago, don't think it would have worked.
No.
But it only worked when it did because of when it happened.
Yeah.
But then I guess two sides of the same coin, it happened when it did because of when it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but I think regardless, you're absolutely correct.
And it's the same actually, weirdly with dogs. Dogs have come into my life when I've really needed them. Lucy helped me get over T and guided me through all sorts of life. Trouble, like difficulties at school. The dog was always there to pick you up, and she used to nudge you like, come on, give me a scratch. And that the sort of thing she used to do just used to cheer you up. And so I think, and then with Fergie, I lost Lucy, who was joined to me by the hip, and I thought that was going to be a really difficult experience for me to go through because of how much of a catalyst she'd been through the different stages so far of my life. And, we mentioned about breakups previous to that for every relationship that I'd had that had impacted me on that level, being cheated on, etc. The dog had still been there. And you say about going home and crying on the pillow, I wouldn't have necessarily said I'd have gone home and cried on the pillow, but I'd gone home upset and the dog was there like, hey, Dad, wagging tail. And that does something, I think, and does help, because I think for me, what helps is being really social. I am quite a sociable person. So, at times of sadness and, losing a dog, losing a partner, etc., that's when I try and surround myself and, oh, guys, what are you doing? Like pub, whatever, to take your mind away. And I think a dog kind of does that regardless. So I'm a big advocate for dogs, but Fergie came to me far too soon than I ever thought. It was probably only 2 months after losing Lucy, and I thought I'd need 2 years. And then I thought, oh, what have I done? She ended up being a fantastic puppy. She was wicked. She didn't wee in the house once, and she's toilet trained. She's a legend. And I thought that was going to be a dreadful experience. It'd been years since I'd ever had a puppy in my life. And she came to me by chance again when I needed it. And I still, months down the line, I thought, I still think I got her too soon. And I was talking to some clients of mine, just chatting away. And I said, I think Fergie came to me too soon. And then they were like, oh, when was it? And I went back a week and a half after I got Fergie. We lost Nelly, which at the time was our Springer Spaniel. And I think without having Fergie, that time would have been 10 times worse, because there was months in it. I'd say probably in total 5 months between Lucy and Nelly. In the same year, we also lost my grandmother, which was the reason behind the podcast and various other things I've done since. And so that was a troubling year. 3 dogs, 1 grandparent, and I think dogs help you and get you out of those sort of scenarios, and I have to say Fergie did. She was the best behaved Jack Russell I've ever owned, even compared to Lucy. She has let that slip now. Whether I've let that slip because I'm like, oh, look at my fantastic dog, and then have stopped training altogether because she's been so good and it's just lapsed, which probably is the case. But she is just wicked. I don't know how we got onto dogs being so amazing from breakups, but we do.
Well, sometimes, a good dog is what you need.
Yeah.
And I think my mum has often said, we don't deserve dogs.
We don't. And that's something that makes me really angry as well. Why, how anyone can severely mistreat dogs, or any animal really, but dogs just, I don't know. I don't think anything gives you what a dog gives you.
What a dog gives you, yeah, that's the thing. And they expect nothing in return.
No.
proper unconditional love right there.
Yeah.
Should we have a quick bathroom break?
Shall we?
Yeah.
Oh, we still got 40 minutes.
Still got some time.
Still got some time. Do we leave it running like last time? I think we do.
Whatever's easier for you.
We'll leave it running. One clip is easier to edit than two.
Oh, sure.
Because it's one then to
One
clip
clip
together
to
and all sorts.
What format do you record it in? The audio.
I've run out of storage.
Oh, no.
4K.
Oh, no, 4K for these. What about the audio?
The audio, I AI'd how to set this up, and that's how I run it.
Cool.
It's more how I export it, I think, when it comes to publishing the audio podcast itself.
Sure.
So yeah, I never actually did my cue. Okay, good idea. That'll do.
Oh, it makes me want to go home to bed now.
I know. They are amazing. I don't know how we got there.
We were talking about, going through something so difficult, traumatic, and then something good coming out of it later down the line. It was a nice segue as well.
It was quite a nice segue. Did we cover everything in terms of...
I think so, yeah. I think so.
I want to also branch on... I nearly did it when we briefly went to AI and music about... Oh, it's such a weakness of mine.
Reminds me of my dad. Every time I smell whiskey, I think of my dad, because as a kid, my dad would, drink whiskey.
Yeah.
He doesn't drink it so much anymore, but, just the smell of whiskey instantly reminds me of my dad.
It's a proper... It takes me back, the smell of whiskey, all the time. Weirdly to childhood. Bearing in mind, I obviously didn't drink a lot of whiskey, because when you're a kid, it's like, well, what is that? And certainly in terms of beer as well, beer when you were younger. And I think it's a good concept as palates, what's the word? Mature.
Yeah.
And you can eat and drink things that once upon a time you just couldn't.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because I find that as a kid, like I didn't enjoy beer or cider at all. Like my parents would let me try it, and I just didn't have the time for it.
No.
And now as an adult, it's like, oh, delicious.
Oh,
But then I wonder to what extent it's just you get used to it, but in a nice way, as opposed to like, if for example, if you'd never had a beer until you were say 25, would you then enjoy it, or would you go, oh, that's a bit weird?
interesting. If someone is watching right now or listening, please somehow get in touch and let us know if you had your first beer at 25, and let us know what it was like. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, that would be. I would love to know, because even with like gin, if I said this to a friend recently, because I'm a bit of a gin fiend, as you know. I
Yeah.
love a good gin, and as a kid, even when I started to drink ciders and beers and things, spirits just didn't really interest me. I thought, well, why would you drink that? And then as an adult now, fast forward, 10 years or whatever, I think, oh God, I love a good gin. As a kid, I was like, what? Why do mum and dad drink G and T's?
Yeah.
What is that? Like, why does everyone drink G and T? Fast forward to me as an adult going, oh, I love a G and T.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
But the young thing now is lemonade, gin and lemonade.
G and L. Is that a
G&L.
thing? I mean, to be fair, I've had gin and lemonade. And it's delicious.
It's good.
It's really
Don't get
nice.
me wrong, it's good, but a G&T is just something.
Can't be
There's
beat.
something about it.
Mm,
But then
mm.
people don't get that. They're like, no, you don't have tonic with gin.
I've
But
used
I'm like,
lemonade out of desperation when there's no tonic. Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree with you on that. I prefer a nice
Yeah.
tonic,
Good tonic.
and maybe a squidge of fresh lime or lemon,
or,
depending on your taste. But
or.
yeah,
See, I went through a big rum stage as well. Like I loved a squeeze of lime, a bit of Coke, and some good rum. And yeah, I think there was one that was called Kraken.
oh yeah, Kraken's quite renowned. It's quite a famous rum.
Yeah. That was.
Then they do like a spice rum as well. Kraken,
Yeah.
spice rum.
Yeah, that was good.
Quite a
'Cause
big
it's
brand that.
Different flavored to sort of your general Captain Morgan's.
Like your generic rum.
Yeah. But no, really, really, really good. So yeah, I wanted to touch base on a couple more of the little bits that we didn't get to on our first initial podcast, and that was realizing that you toured around Europe and a lot of different sort of did you put it as
crazy places?
Crazy places. Because I've heard a lot of. There used to be when I did my when I worked in the Midlands in Warwickshire, my neighbour. He was a neighbour by caravan. He lived out of a caravan, and I was also at the time living in a caravan. It was great, and he would sporadically once a month head back to Poland, and he'd drive it all in just one go, which is actually like a whole day, a whole 24 hours nearly of driving. He was saying anyway, and. He used to bring back beer, and this beer ranged from anywhere from 9% to 14%.
What? 14%?
And I always remember Grandad and I got back from the pub, so we'd already had a few beers, and Grandad's thing, he has 2 beers and then he'll go on to whiskey.
Sure.
So he waits until his second beer is halfway, and then he'll have his whiskey in with the beer. And so we already had been drinking, and we always go to the pub before dinner if I was back from work in time. And we got back, and he'd just arrived back from Poland. So he was there, and he was a lovely guy, but he was like, "Oh, how are you guys?" And here's rent money. And he was like, "You must drink with me." And so we sat on my caravan steps. I was actually in a static home, whereas he was actually in a caravan. And we sat on the steps, and he got this beer out, and the first one he got out, and they were in bottles like, you know, the Pepsi Max you get from like KFC, those sort of, not the big ones, but not the small ones, the sort of medium-sized Diet Cola. They were like that in bottles like that. And by the time you've gone round 3, you nearly a bottle's about done. So we had the first one, that was 9%. The second one was 12%.
Did it even taste nice?
It was. You could tell it was strong, but it was good. Like you wouldn't think, oh God. It was actually quite tasteful, but in that respect, you also didn't quite realize how much you were drinking, how quickly. And by the time we'd gone round 3 of these bottles between 3 of us, Grandad couldn't even stand by the end of it. And I stood up, took a big gulp of fresh air, and was like, "Oh wow!"
Yeah. You don't even realize because you've been sat down and you're comfortable. You don't really think of it about it much. And then you stand like.
So yeah, that was eventful. But yeah, so I would love, from what I know and who I've met who has been Polish, I would love to. I would love to go and visit.
I remember going to, I think it was my first ever abroad tour, and I was with 2 very talented musicians called Mateusz Gotzek, excuse me. He'll crucify me for that. Mateusz Gotzek and Stefanos Karageorgi. And these guys, very good musicians, and I was drumming on behalf of their project called Immortal Machinery, which to this day I think is a great name.
That's a great name.
And we drove all the way to Germany to play a few gigs there. And I forget where in Germany we were. This was back in 2017. And we were in this somewhat isolated campsite, basically. And there was a very small town nearby, a little church, and oddly enough, like a mega store, even though the town was tiny. And where we stayed, it was basically a little bit like a sort of holiday hut area. Yeah. So there were small log cabins. There were places where you could hook up your caravan, your camper van. There were some mobile homes there. It was quite kind of a higgledy-piggledy mix of like small temporary holiday homes.
Yeah.
And I think initially we were going to get some sort of large teepee type tent. And for whatever reason, I can't remember now, but they said, oh, that's not available anymore. So we've upgraded you. You get a log cabin. So for a week while we were on this tour, we stayed in this tiny little log cabin. And one of my fondest memories was when we went to sort of the local boozer, which was another tiny little log cabin. And we went in and we didn't really know what to expect. We barely spoke a word of German. Matt's Polish. Steph speaks Greek and English. I mean, you wouldn't know that he's Greek by the way he speaks. He speaks perfectly fluent, nicely pronounced English.
Wow.
And we went in. So between us, we don't know any German. And we thought, oh God, well, we'll just go and have a beer, see what it's like. And, there are about maybe half a dozen people there, just from all walks of life, just sitting there chilling, quietly sipping their beers.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking how nice and quaint it was. And it felt like the German equivalent of like a quaint little English pub in the middle of nowhere, serving these really nice beers. And we got chatting, and somehow one thing led to another. And before we know it, they've put our CD on in the pub, in this little log cabin.
Wicked.
And it's playing out the speakers. And all these Germans are going, oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. And it was such an unexpected experience. And I loved it. Because most of the time on that tour, if we were drinking, it would either be back in the cabin or it'd be at the venue where we played. Yeah. But that stuck out because it was so quaint and idyllic and nice and fun and sweet. And the other thing I noticed was when we were playing in Poland, the booze was so cheap everywhere.
Really?
Like you go into the supermarket and it costs very little.
Wow.
But I think Poland has quite a lot of heavy drinkers, but it's easy to see why when it's so inexpensive. Yeah. I say that tongue in cheek, of course, but like buying a big bottle of vodka. I forget what exactly it was, but it wasn't much at all. Like half the price of what it is in the UK.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know if that's all changed now, but it was very, very cheap. But it all tasted great. It's not like sometimes you buy cheap booze and it tastes disgusting.
Yeah.
Everything there, to the best of my recollection, or what little recollection I have left after all the boozing.
Yeah.
It all tasted absolutely fine.
Wow.
And it was inexpensive. So if you're a boozer looking for a cruiser, go to Germany or Poland.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that as well about Bulgaria. People were like, oh, if you want like a really budget ski trip, go to Bulgaria. And even like drinking on the Alps or in and around it, pints will be £1, the equivalent of £1 and things like that. And
wow.
So yeah, for a skiing trip, if you're looking for one, apparently Bulgaria is the place. Again, I looked into it, and certainly accommodation for the week, including flights, was something anywhere from 300 to 500, and some of those included ski pass as well, which is mega cheap.
Wow, that is mega cheap. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so
I'll go to Bulgaria for my next ski holiday.
Do it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you like skiing? You a big fan?
Love it. Yeah, love it.
You ever tried snowboarding?
Never. Oh, lies. I had a lesson. And I realised in that instance it's not for me.
Right, sure. Especially when you can already ski.
Yeah.
As well, I think.
And I think if I'd have started with snowboarding, I think it would be easier to branch from snowboarding to skiing. I think whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I had a few snowboarding lessons, once at the Alps and just for a laugh, and the other one was I did a 4-hour course as a bit of a team building exercise with some friends, and they were all colleagues, and they were like, "Oh, how would you like to come?"
How would you like to come and try it?
Yeah, it was at the dry slope in is it Gillingham? I think it's Gillingham.
That was where you had the lesson.
Yeah, the 4-hour intensive, and then we went to the pub and had a beer and some food afterwards.
I thought this got smashed.
Yeah,
for some reason.
So yeah, no, that was. But I like having independent ability to move my legs rather than being stuck in a position. So are you
Sure.
a snowboarder?
No, I'm a skier through and through. My dad is quite traditional and wouldn't allow me to even try snowboarding. And by the time I could, it was too late. I thought, well, I'm so comfortable skiing now. I think maybe one day I'd like to try it for sure, but I'm a reasonably competent skier. That being said, I did skateboard a lot when I was a teenager.
I was just about to say, you were good on the board. So
I was. Oh, thanks. Haven't done it in many moons. It was good fun. I had a sort of maybe a 4-year phase where I was really quite into skateboarding. And then for whatever reason, I just lost interest in it over time, I suppose. I'm not sure why. I guess other things just took over. But that was really good fun. And Even though I'm right-footed, I skate goofy. Although if I remember correctly, if you're right-footed, typically you'll skate regular, which is where you're going forwards, you're facing the right hand, your body is facing the right-hand side. That's regular. But if you're going forwards and you're facing the left-hand side, that's goofy. I remember people saying, "Oh, it's weird that you're right-footed, but you skate goofy."
Right.
But to me, it always came naturally that way.
I think
I don't know why.
whatever it comes naturally as. Sorry about my little minion. I realise now it's very unprofessional to have brought her down on a podcast, but
well, I think on the contrary, anybody watching this will think that's really endearing and sweet.
yeah, I thought on the topic of dogs, why not? Why not? You want to come and join in on the podcast? You got anything to say? Anything to add?
She looks very pleased with herself.
No, you go to sleep and let us talk. Yeah, no, I think in terms of skateboarding and the transition between snowboarding, I think you would have aced it. I think you still would ace it.
Oh, maybe. Oh, thank you. I've got to give it a go. Yeah,
the foundation is there. Maybe we should go one day.
Go to the dry ski slope and give it a go.
Well, that or we should go skiing. Maybe we'll go to Bulgaria.
Oh yeah, for sure. Where the booze is cheap and the ski lifts are cheap. Actually, that might be an amazing experience.
Just like I've never been, but I looked into booking it. I think last year, and then just never came
went
to
for it.
fruition. But I remember for a nice apartment, ski pass and flights in one of the best areas in Bulgaria was 500.
What, all in?
For flight, ski pass and apartment.
Wow, that's incredible.
And
And
then
obviously you just, hire all your stuff, buy all your food.
Yeah.
Bish
that
bash
was it.
bosh.
Yeah.
If that's true, let's go.
Yeah.
We'll do a podcast on top of the mountain or something.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
That would be cool. Did I ever tell you about the future plans for like here?
I think you mentioned changing some things in here, like changing the wall, maybe putting some more acoustic panels in, that kind of thing.
Acoustic panels. I want to get some green. It needs some plants, I think.
Oh, sure.
me.
That'd be quite nice, yeah. That'd be quite nice,
Yeah.
I think.
How well they're doing here, I don't know, especially with diesel heaters.
Sure. I mean, you could always get fake ones if it was more for the aesthetic than anything. But
I could. I think it's more for the chakra.
also, I mean, even some artwork as well.
Yes.
You could quite easily get some custom prints onto like burlap, I think it's called, or on like sack material, which is very commonly used for acoustic panels. That might be a really nice look, because then you add some decor, but also helps soak up some of the reverberation in the room.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I can tell, it's a very nice
bad.
natural sound already. Yeah,
It's not bad. And I realized that I had an episode yesterday, and I recorded a Instagram story after in here, and I was like, you can't, there's nothing. This is good. So yeah, it's I think it's well, but out round the back, Granny was always obsessed with her frog pond. She had a frog pond in the garden, loved her frogs, was kind of her animal, until they all get eaten by a snake. And the funny story surrounding that was she ended up catching the snake. It eventually came back, but she caught it. And there's just this vision of this 70-year-old lady marching this snake into the woods to release it.
wow.
She just marched to the woods carrying this snake.
Okay, so it'd be like, right, off you go.
Yeah.
Don't come back for my frogs.
Exactly. And subsequently it came back. So she did she filled it with soil and started growing plants in it instead. But she loved it while she had it. And I'd like to recreate that out there and then almost make it kind of overly botanical, to the point where I have a nice path and then a nice wooden pagoda with some lights, so that I could potentially in the summer do a few outdoor episodes if I wanted to, or at least have the option to.
Oh, that might be really nice, actually.
Yeah.
Really nice vibe.
Yeah. I think guest dependent, and sort of what you're talking about. But I think that would be really good. Because there's a need for the professional look in terms of the studio, and sometimes it's quite nice just to have that relaxed feel and have the mics on a couple of stands. And I'm not quite sure logistically how it would all work, but I'm sure by that point I'd have or I'll just ask AI.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe you can get some decent lapel mics. I don't know how well they work outdoors,
No.
but there's always a way. I guess part of the appeal of a podcast is seeing like the microphone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally get that as well. But I think you can get those big furry pop shields which help diminish the sound of the wind on the microphones.
Yeah.
So you've got options.
Got options. I think that it's a really good concept. So I hope one day. But it's a bit like adding stuff to the internals of the room. I kind of got to my budget and I've kind of left it there, and I think I was ready and I was so excited to be ready that I was like, I can't wait to record. Let's record.
Yeah.
It's like that door that needs a curtain, one of those theatrical curtains, the really thick one.
Like a really big, that's a good idea.
But yeah, finding them is actually really difficult unless you get them shipped from America. I struggled. I've looked everywhere, yeah. So if you know a contact for any of that
Thick
thing,
black curtain.
Just I ideally want just two, and they only need to be big enough to go over the doors.
Do you want two so you can pull them apart?
No.
I don't one for each door.
Move that one to the left, and
I see what you mean.
Just on a reel or something. Because once they're pulled across and you start the episode, you won't need to move them. So you, but yeah, I struggled unless they're coming from America. I couldn't seem to
I wonder
find.
why. Maybe it's like a very specialized thing.
I suppose once you've got theatrical curtains, you're probably not going to need them again. So if you are going to in the market for them, buying them from America probably isn't really. It doesn't matter so much. Maybe.
I'll ask around because I'm doing some tech work this month at a couple of different clubs. I'll ask around just in case they go, oh yeah, you can have this. Oh, thank you very much. That'll come in very handy.
Yeah, I like.
Would you ever consider having two more microphones?
Yeah, it's on the cards. Again, it was a slight financial thing, and also I've put off anyone. So there's two friends that I have, and we were all scammed by a mutual friend that we had.
Shit, you got scammed
big time. Luckily, touch wood, I think all three of us have now got our money back. But it was.
How did you get the money back?
I had to get solicitor and my dad involved. My dad, when he puts his mind to it, is some sort of wizard at finding information out on anyone. It was kind of scary to the point where like any address said person gave was proved to be not owned by him, and it's owned by this person. He found out just scary information, and that was my dad, who's technologically not quite as forward as most of us are, but he just knew stuff like getting land registry on the addresses given to us for fraudulent things, like my solicitor lives here, where it turns out no, his parents live there, and things like that. Was just
gosh,
Dad did all that.
Did you get the money back from the person who scammed you, or did it come from another source? Out of interest,
I don't know if it came from someone else who was scammed, but my thing was I got the money back. I've got a little USB that I keep in a secure location with all the evidence I gathered, because it was some serious fraudulent shit.
Sure.
So I keep it. Not that what I would hate is to find out one day that he's still doing it and he's been doing it for years, which evidently could have been the case, because from me, he did it to another friend of mine.
What was the scam?
The scam was, have you ever watched The Tinder Swindler? The Tinder Swindler.
Oh, is that similar to that show, that American show called Catfish?
I don't know. I've never watched Catfish.
Is it when they create fake profiles and pretend to be someone they're not, and then get you to send them money?
Sort of. So the premise of The Tinder Swindler, and it was a long time ago since I watched this, but he would meet girls on Tinder, portray this millionaire kind of lifestyle, fly around in private jets all the time, etc., etc. Well, he'd make them fall in love with the lifestyle, fly them around here, there, and everywhere. He'd go to business meetings with them, and they'd come with him, and then he'd falsely proclaim this danger and that enemies were after him and all his bank accounts were frozen, and these girls would get credit cards and loans in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars, pounds, euros, and send this guy the money.
Wow.
And so he was basically using the scammed money to fly the next girl around here, there, and everywhere, portray this lavish
No
lifestyle
way.
to get
Wow.
more hundreds of thousands.
Bloody hell, it's quite a setup.
Big time. Until I can't remember what turned it on its head, but he got found out. Apparently felt no remorse and actually said at his trial he's going to get plastic surgery and do it all over again. But it was kind of like that, from what I could gather.
Did he fly you around?
He didn't, but interestingly enough, my friend, he did.
No way.
He took on holiday. They took helicopters to the hotel or to the villa that they had rented and private this and took round. He used to go clubbing with bodyguards and things like that. So
so he just hire some bodyguards to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And so betrayed this millionaire kind of trust fund kind of lifestyle. And yeah, it was, what was scary is I watched the Tinder Swindler, and Tinder wasn't involved, but I like to say I was Tinder swindled because it was similar. You know, I got rung up in the middle of the night. You're the only person I know who would have X amount of money, and at the time it was everything I'd ever saved. And I was like, this is all out of the blue. He was like, this has happened. I'm going into court tomorrow unless I pay this lady the money. And basically it was made to sound like he'd been done over by her dad, but she thought he'd done her dad over. And so she raised a claim against him that then made him need to go to court. I'm not explaining, it's been a long time now, but so then I rang up a friend of mine who was close to him at the time and said, look, what do you think I should do? And he was like, if it was me and I had the money, I'd do it. And I kind of thought, well, he's always portrayed this lifestyle. In some ways, he'd be a great person to one day owe you a favor if I'd never ever need one. He drew up this contract that said I'd get the money in X amount of time with interest and this amount of interest, and signed it.
Smart.
And I sent the money.
Presumably once he'd signed it.
Yeah, he sent me it. It was all kind of digital, and then so I didn't tell anyone apart from my partner at the time, and because I was like, if this goes tits up, I'm going to be called a fool, and it did. And basically, what I found out over time is that I basically paid off the last person he'd done pretty much exactly the same to.
Wow. Albeit
not to hundreds of thousands of pounds. It was not anywhere near that amount, but it was still at the time a lot to me because we would have been early 20s. So of course, you're saving for future life and deposits and all sorts of things that you think you might need. This. So it was not a nice time, and over the time, and there's a lot of lies and a lot of forgery and falsifying FCA emails and all sorts. So the Financial Conduct Authority, and Dad found that out because he emailed them and was like, is this an email of someone who works for you? And they're like, we can't confirm or deny this. And Dad was like, well, can you at least say if it is anything to do with you? And they're like, yeah, we can confirm that's not an email for us. So like, that's big fraud. That is, because Financial Conduct Authority claiming that there's an email there that states that your accounts have all been froze and there's a pending investigation against you is bad.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so glad you got the money back.
Yeah. My friend sent more. The friend that he was flying around in helicopters and things sent more. And actually in the end used me and some of my evidence and actually my dad to help get his money back, because
Jesus,
what was scary is he believed everything he was telling you, and that was the scary thing. And even to the
He was
point
that
where
convincing.
I got to the point where I was so stressed, and it was a month. The money was a month late, and I got all these excuses. And he said that he sent it, and his bank was confirming that he sent it, and I hadn't received it, and it was made to feel like it was my bank, and I was just like, I can't.
Sorry.
If you need to get it, feel free.
No, it's okay.
And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm getting my dad involved. I'm too stressed about this, and Dad got involved. And as soon as I said Dad was getting involved, he was like, "What's your dad's number?" And he rang him in the click of two fingers and was like, "Hi, David. I hear like you've got some concerns over the money with your son," and would just so confidently talk to Dad as if it was normal.
Oh God.
And Dad was like, "Fucking hell! If I didn't know he was a piece of shit, I'd believe him." And like I can see,
wow, it's like a proper like sociopath.
And he was like, "I can see why you sent him the money, 100%."
Because he was so convincing.
So convincing. And even like throughout when I was like, "You're a week late," he was like, "Don't worry, you know, I'm not only going to give you your profit. There's this startup company that I've had a lot to do with. I'm going to get you some shares in there, and they're going to send you a load of these products. And for being such a good mate, I'll get you a Patek Philippe watch." Yeah. So like just off the cuff, just knew how to just play the part. To the point where solicitor, here's my solicitor's address, which I would have believed, because why would you lie about your solicitor's address? It was his parents' address. Loads of stuff. Like I'm working on these flats that I've now bought. I've bought a set of 14 of them. None of them were bought. They were all rented. So yeah, it was a whole conspiracy of lies.
Huge scam.
Yeah.
My God. And this is why I guess so many of us now, no matter what banking app we have, they have so many warnings about this. Even if, you know, you're sending cash, like when I send cash to one of my own accounts in my name, they'll be like, "Are you sure? Are you being scammed?" They're like, "No, it's literally my account."
Yeah.
"Are you sure?
Can you answer a few questions about this transaction, please?
Can we scan your face?"
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Can you read this paragraph to us, please, so we can identify you?
It's mental. But that's why, I suppose.
That's why, and not only that, I think I like it because with my bank, if you send anything over, I can't even remember what it was, but I don't think it's a lot. They make you answer a series of questions, and I kind of like that because I can imagine an old person on the phone to an actual scammer in one of those call centers, and some of the questions they were asking, like, "Who is asking you to send this money? Is it over the phone?" And I didn't click that because I was in person with who I was buying whatever it was when these questions last came up. But I can imagine the follow-up questions is, are they claiming to be from X, Y, and Z, a phone company or this? And then you have to keep answering until the point where we think this is a scam. Please call us or something before making this payment.
Yeah.
Which hopefully, I hope, stops a lot of these scams, because I can't remember the figure, and it wasn't for the year just gone. It was 2023. The amount that they still are able to get through scamming is sickening. These like telephone company scams where they're like, "You've just bought an iPhone on Amazon. Press 1 if this wasn't you," and you get through to someone quite obviously from a call center in a different country.
Yeah, it's like on a big scale as well.
Yeah. I'm sure it was trillions still.
And you'd think it'd be, especially in the digital age, it'd be easy to get the money back. You just reverse the charge or whatever. But I guess it's not that simple. But you think it would be. A bit like when you buy a product, they'll instantly take the money, but then, "Oh no, I want a refund. Here's the product back." "Oh, it'll take 2 weeks to refund you."
I hate that.
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. Did you hear about the AI? I can't remember if we mentioned this last time we spoke, but the AI grandma that I think it was O2 have created.
No.
It's an AI grandma, and she'll speak to scammers, but she'll have full-on conversations with them. And she'll basically delay them for as long as possible, because while they're trying to scam her, an AI, they're not scamming anyone else.
That's wicked.
And there's a great clip of people getting really angry with her and her just going, "All right, dear. Oh, it's showing me a picture of my cat." Things like that. And it sounds totally convincing. You imagine over the phone where the quality's not that good anyway. And I just thought that is incredible. That is incredible.
There's a YouTuber I follow, and he hacks the scammers.
Oh, right. Okay. Is this the guy who wears sunglasses?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But he's this awesome computer wizard. And he buys a brand new laptop for it, and obviously has his own software. And he's taken down a lot of scamming rings.
Man, good for him.
Really
That's
good.
awesome.
And so basically what he does is he lets them remote access, but he reverses it at the same time. So he accesses their computers and then bridges it to hack the Wi-Fi that they're on and then get access to every computer.
No way.
And he watches them for weeks, gathers all this information about who individual people, creates this whole like wall of info on who's the top person in this scamming ring, like draws it with string. And then he rings them up on like, once he's got a load of evidence, he's like,
mobile,
can I speak to such and such, please? And they're like, sorry, who? And who are you? And he's like, I want to speak to such and such. And they're like, you're not meant to know like any of our names. And he's like, I know who I'm speaking to right now because he can see them in the webcam.
No way.
And he's like, your name's such and such. And they're like, oh shit. So they do run straight away and grab like the top person in this scamming call center. And you see them on the other webcam, and he's also got audio, and you hear them go, this person knows all of our names. He knows our address. You need to speak to him. And they're like shitting a brick for like 10 minutes. And it is comedy gold watching these scammers.
And it's satisfying as well because they're trying to scam people.
Yeah.
And he's like,
no.
Isn't it great to know that there are people out there who are that talented, that skilled, and using their skills and services for good rather than evil?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It is.
You must send this to me because I watched all 3 of the Squirrel Olympics. The videos that you sent me, they were fantastic.
They're
really,
so
really,
good.
really cool. So you must send me one of these as well.
I'll send you one.
That's great. Yeah,
I'll send you one. It is the last one I watched was so good, and they worked out he was watching them, and sure enough, they just closed all of their laptops, and then even then you could hear the audio. And then the ones that kept their laptop open because they were in the middle of scams would just stick blue tack over the webcam, but you could still hear them.
Wow.
It was fantastic. And then he got them shut down, which of course is the best information. But not only the specific one I watched, not only did he have access to all of this, he gained access. He watched them put scams through. So he gained access to their bank account. He then knew how much they'd actually scammed, which was in the millions. This one call center.
Wow, huge project.
Yeah, huge. And he'd see all the money coming in and the tallies and the scams that were ongoing and the ones that had been completed. And he actually emailed. No, this was it. This was an amazing video, actually. It's all coming back to me. It was quite a while I watched it. He contacted everyone on this scam list because they actually kept a spreadsheet on who it was from and the money coming in and how much they'd scam them for.
Sure.
He contacted them all while had access to their bank account, sent everyone the money back.
Wow, you could do that.
I thought when I watched it, I was like, surely there's some legal complications for that. But I guess, I don't know. I guess if it's stolen money to begin with,
That's weird that, because then you got to prove it was stolen, but then does he have a legal right to hack into the scammer's bank account to send money from their account?
God knows.
But it wasn't their money.
I'm sure, I'm 90% positive that's what happened. It was a
That's
fantastic
mental.
video.
Yeah, I'd love to know how that works because I can imagine, like, especially in a country like the UK where everything's a little bit backward when it comes to law and justice, that he does that and then, we're arresting you. Why? Oh, because you hacked into someone's bank account and sent their money. Yeah, but it wasn't their money. They scammed it. Yeah, but what you did was still illegal. You know what I mean? Like, okay. But hopefully that didn't happen. And justice was served, and he got them their money back.
I like to think or hope that if something like that did get to court, the judge would kind of look at all the evidence and think, well, actually, with the circumstances, although it was still wrong, we're just kind of, community service or something.
Yeah.
Because surely you can't look at a case like that and think, oh my God, how dare you? Like, you
send people their money back.
Yeah.
Because you're giving money back to people that they've been scammed out of.
And for some of these people, it was a shitload of money. Like some of these elderly people, it was everything, like their whole either retirement fund or everything they were going to leave their family. So it's devastating. But it was a really good video, and I think he did come out and say like he couldn't send everyone's money back, but to who he did send, I'll try and find the exact video.
Please do. That would be awesome. It's going to make me think twice now when my bank says, "Oh, you sure you want to send money to this account or whatever?" And I go, "Yes, I'm sure. I'm a bit fed up with this." And I'll think about this and think, "Oh, actually, there's reasoning. There's good in this. Yeah, there's good intentions here."
But yeah, it's a sad world, but hopefully slowly things like that are coming to an end, because it's devastating. Money is the root of many things.
And maybe perhaps with the advent of AI, it won't be possible anymore in the future anyway. But then it begs the question, what if you just set up an AI to scam the AI? But that's a whole other, that's beyond the scope of even my opinion, I would imagine. Definitely my expertise.
Yeah. It's a bit like, have you ever seen that video where these two guys scam call two fast food restaurants, and they put both the calls on voicemail, on voice loudspeaker mode, set both phones down, and one of the guys like, "Hi, welcome to such and such. How can I take your order?" And the guy's like, "How can I take your order?" And he's like, "No, you called me. How can I take your order?" And he's like, "Yeah, but you called me. How can I take your order?" And that reminds me a lot of like getting AI to talk to each other, scam each other. It's like, hang on, you're AI too. Yeah, so are you.
Are you trying to scam me? No, but that's what you'd say. Is it? Oh, maybe it is, but I promise you I'm not.
Yeah, it was kind of great just watching. I think it was Domino's and Papa John's or something, and they were both going back and forward like, hang on a minute. It took them far too long than it should have done.
But they eventually figured it out.
Yeah.
But then to be fair, like, I'm surprised that they wouldn't just go, "Look, this is a waste of my time," and hang up,
That's what I thought. You
think it'd be like, "Oh, you're just being silly," and hang up, but
yeah. I was thinking on the way home the other day how I don't think in my respect we're not as advanced as I thought we would be. And I was driving home and it was around Christmas, and I thought the amount of Amazon vans I've seen, or just delivery vans in general, and how at one point there was this big thing that Amazon were going to start using drones and your package would come via drone. And then I led on to this whole thought process of how all of that would work in terms of the airspace and planes, and would there become a point where, because it's so easy and because it comes by drone and it comes in seconds, that there'll be more drones than there will be anything else in the sky, and that's virtually all you would see. I went down a big rabbit hole because people already overorder on Amazon, and how easy it is to return on Amazon, and just ordering in general has become such an easy process and is so ingrained in our life. And even my friend lives in London. You probably may have experience with this. His Amazon, he can get same day
delivery because of where he lives.
Because he's in London, yeah.
Wow, that's mental.
Mental.
You think like for so long you'd have to wait at least 3 days.
At least 3 days.
And
you'd be checking the post box with excitement every day because you'd ordered this thing that you...
Is it here? Is it here?
Yeah.
It reminds me of reading an article about how it's quicker to order drugs in London than it is to get a pizza. And at the time I thought, oh, wow, that's crazy. But then I thought, well, actually, no, because drugs are ready to go. Pizza, you've got to cook it. So
that wasn't what popped into my mind, but very true.
Yeah, it's ready off the shelf, but pizza you got to cook. But then who knows? With drones now, maybe you can get a pizza quickly delivered.
Well, weren't they at one point? Someone was delivering drugs to prisons with drones. That was a thing.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that. Yeah.
Which no brainer. If you need a drug,
you think like no. The first one to think of it, be like, this will work. And it would work for a time, and then immediately they'll crack down on it.
Yeah.
And then by then they've got it. So
I suppose it just takes one guard to see that drone and then a little packet drop from it and think, that was strange.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because you see now at Charing Cross, there's an automated robot that cleans the floor. And then annoyingly, it beeps all the time, which I would find infuriating if I worked there, but I don't work there, so it's not a problem. But you think that there are little robots delivering packages and parcels now.
Yeah, there are.
But I don't know. I'd be interested to know, are they more at risk of being stolen from and vandalized because they're robots rather than a real living, breathing human being working out the back of a van? I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. But then I said the same about this scooter craze we now have.
We did
or electric bike craze that we have. Because I went to a few years back, probably 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer now. Anyway, years ago, I went to Cologne in Germany. Is it Cologne? I think it's Cologne. And everywhere they had what they call, I think it was a Lime. It might have been a Lime bike. It might have been something else. Sorry, not a Lime bike.
Scooter?
A Lime scooter. And you just scan the barcode on the scooter. It connects to the app. You put your phone back in your pocket and you've got access to the scooter. And then when you're finished, as long as it's in a dedicated zone, you just get off and you leave it.
Sweet.
And you put done with my journey and you leave it. And my throwback to that was, one, how do they get charged? Because that blew my mind. And two, why doesn't someone just get in their big white van at night and scoop them all up and take them somewhere and, I don't know, morph this big old massive scooter that they've
That's a
always
good
wanted.
point. Yeah. Why wouldn't someone who knows what they're doing, surely you can engineer it so that you just take off the tracking device or whatever's built into it. Why wouldn't you?
Apparently it just doesn't happen because they're so readily available. No one really needs to steal them. If you're going to have an electric scooter, you already have one. And if you need one, there's one outside your door. If you
it's more trouble than it's worth, basically.
Yeah. Why would you go to the hassle of stealing one, breaking the tracker, for it only to be possibly still recognized as stolen, to then not really have that much of a market to sell it back to anyway?
Oh, I see. Because no one's buying them. Because why would they buy them when you can just rent them?
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good point.
If you've already got your own one that you've got that already, most probably.
What I find slightly detestable about that is that the police were cracking down on them in London, and yet it's apparently, last I checked, illegal to ride your own one in London, or elsewhere. But then it's perfectly fine to rent one. And Mum was making the argument that but if you have to rent them, they're licensed and they're trackable and all the rest of it. But I thought it was a bit of a non-starter argument because the amount of cameras in London, you can easily, you feel you're part of an accident, you're easy to track.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. I mean, you're photographed, 100 and however many times it is when you leave your house and go anywhere in London. So it seems a bit mental to me that you are, oh yes, please, thank you. That you are, that you're not allowed to rent one and you're not allowed to ride one that that's fine, thank you. Not allowed to ride one that you've bought and paid for yourself. You have to rent them. I thought that was just a bit scummy. But
I agree. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there are loads of things that I agree with and disagree with in terms of, I was looking at getting an electric bike. I still haven't. I still fancy one. And one of the electric bikes I was looking at and have really sold my heart on and still want one to this day has got what they call now a detachable throttle. Because if I got pulled over or stopped by the police on the road and I have a throttle and it operates the bike independently to the pedals, that is illegal. I need to have a license for that.
Right.
As in a license, a motorbike
license. Is that because it's a powered vehicle rather than a pedal powered vehicle?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So it's a little bit like a lot of my friends, and I wish I'd have joined, did this whole thing where you can buy this kit off eBay for like £45, and it's basically this little engine that you strap to your just general pedal bike. So what they all did is they all got these cheap pedal bikes from the scrapyard, bought these little £45 engines off eBay and strapped them all to their pedal bikes, and they all did this massive pub crawl on these little 50cc pedal bikes. Really cool. Wished I'd have joined, but at the time, I may not have been allowed. So yeah, but that is massively illegal in terms of the law.
Because you have no license.
But what I liked about this bike is if I didn't fancy pedaling, I didn't have to.
Yeah.
And then if there was a premise where maybe I might be told off, I could just take it off because it's detachable, put it in my pocket, and then pretend to cycle.
It's that small.
It's detachable throttle. Sorry.
That's pretty amazing though that you can just take it off and I guess if you quickly nip round the corner, take it off and hide it somewhere or throw it to the side or whatever.
Well, let's be honest. I'm probably gonna, if the times I would use a throttle independently would be, I'd cycle like normal on the way to the pub, and then
smart.
I'd probably throttle on the way home.
Yeah, smart. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I thought, in terms of if I ever needed to, and Mr. Officer came along and said, "Oi," I'd just take it off, pocket it, and then just, I'm pedaling, officer, because it has pedals as well. It's not
it's not like the pedals
these
disappear.
Chiron. Have you seen are they Surons?
No idea.
They're basically electric motorbikes, essentially. But they're what stormed London and gave the police the right to ram them.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about this. Yeah. Which I thought was amazing. What made me laugh, though, in the footage I saw was it was like, police officers who've been specially trained to safely ram someone.
Yeah.
And it's literally them just going, and like slamming into some dude, knocking him off the bike.
Yeah. I think their premise for specially trained is where to ram them so that it causes minimal damage to the individual.
Yeah. I just thought it was quite funny that,
It did make me laugh too, because the video I saw, poor guy, I don't know what he did. I just saw him getting absolutely yeeted. So yeah. But yeah, so the Churons are basically just electric motorbikes, essentially.
Sure.
And they are rapid. I remember I was flying my drones behind some friends that are into jumping mountain bikes, and one of the guys at this park or wherever we were, he had one, and it was crazy. Like, because a bit like the cars, electric cars are just such instant power, because there's no combustion. It's just there.
It just goes, yeah.
And that was like the bike. Like 1 minute he's at standstill, the next minute that wheel is going.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
nuts. But this electric bike doesn't do that. It kind of, the throttle subsidizes. It's essentially like you are pedaling. It's just, an assistant mode, really. So yeah, I was keen for it, but they're not overly expensive, but it's one of those things I want to be sure I'm definitely going to use it.
Yeah, rather than spending the money and the time and the risk.
And I think it's something that I'd like to do with someone. And if either my partner or my friends aren't all that keen, then I quite fancy on a Sunday deciding to cycle around Buell Water or something. And whether that be partially electricized and aided, that would be quite nice to have the option.
So cool, right? I mean,
yeah. Because you still, for most electric bikes, you've still got a pedal. It's like assisted pedal.
Yeah,
So
it helps you go faster.
You pedal less, but you...
Is it kind of like the equivalent of when you go to the airport and you're walking down...
yeah, basically.
Not an escalator, I forget what they're called. A walkway? Yeah, like a powered walkway.
Yeah, like a tread.
It's like helping you get there faster, basically.
Yeah.
Be nice to use one of those. Shame you can't get one of those like for life in general.
Yeah.
Maybe you can.
Maybe
AI is that.
Well, have you seen that new floor they're working on for like filming movies and things?
No,
I can't remember what it's called, but it's like nano, something nano. I'm sure it had nano in it. Most of these cool things have nano, the name or the word nano, and it's like all these tiny little balls that not only are balls, but they have balls on the balls, and like. You can run, but you're not moving anywhere. So it's like they're using it for animations or like CGI, because you can put all those dots on people that
the motion
movements
tracking,
but also
devices.
They can actually, instead of needing a large area, they can record a whole set or sequence. Oh, and for video games as well, on just cool. This tiny area. It's like, and you run, and they were saying it takes a while for you to get used to, because it's a weird feeling,
weird sensation. Yeah.
But once you're used to it, like it's weird to watch, because like they're running, and like you can see them acting a scene and like pretending to run away from something, and they're like properly running, but yeah, it's like it's almost like they're recording a stop motion.
They're just running on the spot in reality. That's so bizarre. That's so cool. But then you think like with terms coming back to what coming full circle here when we're talking about VR in video games. Imagine putting your VR headset on and you have to run. You have one of those at home. You can actually run. And you're not actually running anywhere, but in the game you are.
Yeah.
That would be wicked.
And then tailor that with AI and like procedurally generated.
That'd be so. Oh, it'd be terrifying.
Yeah.
But that is probably the future.
Probably. But God knows what one of these costs. I'll try and find that video as well. It was.
Please do. That would be wicked.
I sometimes get triggered by this weird, colossal knowledge of random things in my head. Just by chance.
Like the intellectual equivalent of shower thoughts.
Yeah. You feel like we've missed anything? Have we missed anything?
I don't feel like we've missed anything, but I feel like you and I could easily talk for hours more.
I know, it's really annoying.
We'll have to meet up and just talk anyway.
Maybe.
You know?
But I mean, if we're talking anyway, what is
might as well record it and then cut all the best bits and make something awesome.
Make some movie magic. But I really enjoy having you on.
Thank you. Well, I enjoy coming on. Thank you for having me because, every time we do, you're very easy to talk to. You listen extremely well, and it's genuinely a joy conversing with you. And you tend to bring out good topics of interest and good subjects. You always have interesting things to say, and you ask good questions, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for having me.
No, that's a nice thing to say. Actually, I didn't think of it like that. And likewise to you, I think. Great spins on things, and I enjoy the lasting effect of thinking about everything we've spoken about. So
likewise,
I'm looking forward to editing these and getting them released, and hopefully in a few months' time or whenever you're keen to come back on and chat some more shit.
I'd love to. That would be great. That would be great.
Wicked. Well, I guess this is us signing off.
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for coming.